while also ensuring that people who have been targeted by these senseless crimes have the supports that they need to be safe. The BC Extortion Task Force also provided an update on the extortion investigations. These crimes that we are seeing are deeply troubling and a threat not only in BC but across Canada. Extortionists prey on the fear as their primary weapons, and they want people to feel vulnerable and isolated and reluctant to come forward. We cannot let this happen. Confronting this issue takes an all-hands-on-deck approach, as you see here today. And we need to work with our partners, continue to work with our partners, and to those with lived experience to strengthen our efforts. We know that more needs to be done to break the cycle of fear and end the intimidation of violence that is impacting families and businesses in our communities. With more on the actions that the federal and provincial governments are taking to tackle extortion, I'd like to invite Premier Eby to offer a few remarks.
Thanks, Nina. Thanks, Nina. Thanks for joining us here today. I want to thank all of our partners in law enforcement who are here, members of the task force, federal elected officials. Very good to see you, partners in this work. And municipal government leaders. It's great to see the mayors here as well. You can see here what the reality is on the ground. We are united and working together to ensure that everybody who has been affected by these extortion threats gets the supports that they need, and that the individuals behind these crimes are arrested, prosecuted, in our community. Today's session was an excellent opportunity for us to update each other on the work we've been doing, to ensure that we are aligned, sharing information, and working as a unified team on this #1 priority for all of us. Ensuring that communities are safe, that families are safe, that business owners are safe, in every community in this province is at the heart of all of us that are doing this work. One of the key pieces of feedback we've had from families and individuals who are affected, they want more information. They need additional support. They feel scared. And so the federal government, along with the provincial government, have each put in $500,000 to improve victim services for people affected directly by these heinous crimes. An additional $4 million from the federal government for a task force to chase down those gangsters that are involved in drug activity south of the Fraser, because there is a close connection between the gangs involved in extortion and the gangs involved in criminal drug dealing in these communities as well. This team will assist local police in working across borders and boundaries and taking a regional approach to ensure that these gangs are arrested and to recognize that they don't pay any attention to the boundaries between communities for their illegal activities. During the session, we engaged in a number of different issues. I want to thank everybody for being frank and open. We have a shared anxiety to stand together, that we don't let this divide us as a community, that we stand together as British Columbians, recognized around the table that all of us have a part to play in ensuring strong communications between each other so that everybody understands what's happening, including sharing as much information as possible with victims of these crimes so that they know and they have confidence about the fact that police are taking this very, very seriously and that important work is being done. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to the Federal Minister, Minister Andesangari, for his comments.
Thank you, Premier, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And let me also acknowledge all the elected members of both the provincial and federal government that are here today, including Secretary of State Sahota, as well as my colleague in British Columbia, Nina Krieger. I want to thank the many law enforcement agencies that have presented today and the enormous collaboration that exists. I had the opportunity this morning to meet with several individuals who were directly impacted by extortion, and I want to tell them, as well as all those who have been going through a very difficult set of issues relating to extortion, that we're hearing you, we're with you, and we will make sure that we put all of our collective resources into action to ensure not only your safety and security, but safety and security of all those in British Columbia and across Canada. Our discussions this morning brought together leaders from all orders of government. Together, we examined the current landscape of extortion in BC, enforcement challenges, and the critical role federal, provincial, and local agencies, including those part of the BC Extortion Task Force. We heard firsthand from victims, community leaders, and business representatives about the impacts of extortion. Building on this work, we are taking concrete steps to disrupt the criminal networks behind these threats, to help police crack down on organized crime and the illegal drug trade in British Columbia. We're creating a new regional integrated drug enforcement team. This team will bring together police from different agencies and border officers to work side by side in one location. By sharing information and resources, they'll be able to act faster and more effectively. This is part of our broader border plan, and we're investing $4 million over 4 years to make it happen. But we know that enforcement alone isn't enough. We also need to support those who have been targeted and tackle crime before it starts. That's why I'm pleased to announce that the Government of Canada is providing British Columbia with $500,000 over 2 years through Justice Canada's Victims Fund for additional victim service and community outreach workers to assist the BC Extortion Task Force. This investment, with matching funds by the province, will strengthen victim services and expand community outreach in the Lower Mainland, particularly in Abbotsford and Surrey. And we're not stopping there. We're also investing $1.5 million in the Yo Bro, Yo Girl Youth Initiative, an organization that works closely within the South Asian community. It will open a youth engagement hub in Surrey to give young people access to mentorship, job training, counseling, and real opportunities while helping them stay away from gangs and organized crime. To those impacted, you're not alone. Your local police and RCMP are here to help, but they need to know when intimidation is happening so they can help keep you safe and stop these threats. If you're approached, whether in person, by phone, email, or any other means, do not engage, do not pay. Instead, contact Crime Stoppers or your local police right away. Reports can be made anonymously, and tip lines like Crime Stoppers are available. The language you're most comfortable with. Taking this step helps police investigate and lay charges against offenders. You will be supported. Meeting extortion demands will not make it stop. It will only lead to more attempts. In addition to today's summit, we're undertaking a number of initiatives that will help tackle extortion both directly and indirectly. To bolster enforcement, the BC RCMP has committed additional resources to the BC Extortion Task Force. The CBSA, represented by Nina Patel, launched investigations into a number of foreign nationals who may be inadmissible and has already removed individuals from Canada as a result. Our government is also investing in community-based crime prevention initiatives in cities across Canada, like the funding were announced today. These targeted programs address the causes of crime, helping to prevent gun and gang violence while supporting vulnerable communities facing targeted threats. It is crucial to invest in community-based solutions to prevent gun and gang violence before it starts. We're also allotted $390 million over 5 years to support provinces and territories with prevention programs and law enforcement initiatives through the initiative to take action against gun and gang violence, and $250 million through the Building Safer Community Funds. Surrey received $3.96 million as part of this investment. In addition, our $1.3 billion border plan, together with proposed border security legislation and criminal justice reforms, will equip law enforcement with stronger tools to fight organized crime. These measures will enhance intelligence sharing, strengthen law enforcement capacity, and disrupt the flow of illicit money that fuels them. Finally, I just want to acknowledge all the law enforcement agencies once again, including Commissioner Larkin, Senior Deputy Commissioner Larkin from the RCMP. We all have a right to live and work in safe communities, free from threats and intimidation. One of the gentlemen I met this morning said all he wants to do is have a peaceful night at home. That's not a lot to ask. And our responsibility is to make sure not only this individual, but all those across British Columbia and Canada are able to do that. And we all have to do our part to ensure that this happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Ananda-Sangri, and I want to thank Premier Eby for hosting us here today. Today's summit was a very successful one. It was good to have all partners sit around and discuss how we can be better coordinated. To the victims of extortion, I want to say that we've heard you, just as Minister Ananda-Sangri said. There are victims across this country. We are taking this very seriously. It is a Canadian issue, and we are treating it as such. It is important for us to coordinate, figure out where the gaps are, and I believe you see with everyone standing here today that we are coordinated, and we will find those that are involved in these extortions. A lot of progress has already been made, and I want to thank all the law enforcement that is here today, all the members of Parliament, MLAs, and everyone that has been advocating to make sure that we address this issue effectively and appropriately. We are arresting, we are dismantling, disrupting these criminal organizations, and where needed, also making removals. And so to those that are involved, they should be warned that this is a serious matter. In terms of Minister Attorney General Sean Fraser, he participated in today's event as well, and also mentioned that there are many pieces of legislation that I want to reiterate to all the media here today that are in the House of Commons that also address this specific issue of extortions, which will make it a lot tougher to get bail. It will make sentences even longer, meaning that it will be mandated that judges should consider consecutive sentencing when these cases arise. There are other measures that have been tabled in the House of Commons that will provide law enforcement with tools like lawful access measures that will better help them in their investigations. So I also urge all Canadians to speak to their elected officials and to make sure that we can get all of these pieces of legislation passed as quickly as possible through Parliament so that this approach can be even more effective in the days and weeks to come. So thank you so much for being here today, and I am going to pass it over to the Extortion Task Force.
Extortion issue within British Columbia and tell you what we're doing and listen to you and what needs to be done more. To the victims of these heinous crimes, the role of the police, every police leader here at every level, be it federal, provincial, or municipal, your safety and security is number one to us. We work around the clock and continues investigations to ensure your safety, up to and including at 7 o'clock this morning when the task force executed search warrants and made arrests. It goes around the clock. To these people that are orchestrating these heinous crimes, we will find you, we will arrest you, and we will put you before the courts where you'll be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Make no mistake on that. So I just want to assure everybody the goal of the task force here is to make sure safety and arrest to stop this is done in the most expedient manner possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We're going to take questions from the media now. All reporters will have one question and one follow-up. We'll try to get to as many reporters as we can. For reporters, please state your name and outlet.
Hi, I'm here. I'm Sarbraj, and I'm from Omni News. My question is to Premier. I'm just trying to understand the combined $1 million support for victims. What is the process in the place, how it's going to reach out to the victims of these extortion crimes?
Thanks. This is funding that goes to police services, local jurisdiction police. They have victim services officers. They have limited resources in terms of the number of police and the number of shifts that they have that they can do this work. But these police officers and the civilian staff who work alongside them are crucial for sharing information with the victims of these crimes to ensure that they know what's happening with their file, so that they can work with civilians and with the police officers to make a safety plan so that they feel safe at home, or if they have to leave home temporarily, that they have a safe place to go. So that was a key piece of feedback we've heard from people in the community. This happened at my house, this happened to my family, but I don't know what happened. I don't know what's happening with my file, and I don't know what we should be doing, and can we go home or not? That's where these victim services officials make a huge difference. They provide some comfort and assistance to families and a plan going forward.
Sure. And just a follow-up for Minister Ananda Sangri. Minister, many in the community who are living in the fear of extortion, they link these crimes to the transnational repression. Do you believe that it has any links to transnational repression? And if so, what is the
G7 public safety ministers meeting last week, and a term that was often used was the polycriminality, which is a culmination of multiple criminal activities. So it could be transnational repression, it could be organized crime, it could be issues around drug dealing, and all these now entities are part of any operation that most law enforcement agencies are involved with. So the notion that transnational repression is part of this is very much part of the discourse around extortion. As you know, we listed 7 cartels as terrorist organizations last year, and we added the Bishnoi gang this year. And this speaks to, I think, the real need to call out what we're dealing with. Certainly transnational repression is one element of it. It's not the only element. There's many other elements as well, including drug trading. So that's one of the things that we're investing in today. It's about drugs. It's about fentanyl and other illicit drugs that are trafficked and that are being deployed into our communities. And we believe that there's a lot of links to these different illegal entities.
Thanks. Paul Johnson from Global News. This question's probably best for the federal officials here. We're just hearing that an individual by the name of Benjamin Seacon, an associate of the Bishnoi Goldie Dillon gang, just been arrested in India, allegedly for firing shots at Cap's Cafe in Surrey. On top of that, we're also hearing that last year he was arrested by Peel Police in Brampton, arrested, charged, and then somehow ends up out of the country in India. Do we have any explanation of how this individual was able to get back to India, and perhaps more broadly what that speaks to coordination among our different police forces? Anything you have on that, we'd be happy.
I don't have a lot on the specific incident that you're referencing, although I am aware that there was an arrest made of an individual allegedly involved with an act in British Columbia. What I can say in general terms is, with respect to CBSA enforcement, while the police of jurisdiction have formal role within their local jurisdiction to enforce the criminal code, collaboration with the Canada Border Service Agency, which is what we're seeing here today, which is a vertical alignment within the Extortion Task Force, does enable us to have greater coordination and collaboration. It is something that we are increasingly using in other jurisdictions as well, and we'll have a lot more to say when we have a but I can, at some later point, respond more wholesome to the particular incident you're talking about.
Okay, thank you. One follow-up question. Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up on what the federal minister is saying, we are aware of that arrest, and we are working closely with our federal colleagues and across the country, reaching into our colleagues in Peel. The task force is aware of the statements made that there is maybe a connection to a file here, and we are working on that, and we expect to have some information in the coming days to substantiate that.
Thank you. Just one follow-up. So you appear to have had a successful summit here. You've drawn attention to the issue. One of the things we're hearing that what's really needed to turn this around, substantially more boots on the ground, on the order of about 150 more officers here in Surrey dedicated to this. Question is that something that is even possible at this point? Do you have the resources? And is that a target and a number that you would move to here in the near-term future?
So I can tell you right now, from the position of the task force and working closely with our law enforcement partners at the local and federal level, we have the resources that are needed. We're not putting a specific number on this. We're using intelligence-led policing to get the right number of police officers in the right area at the right time, and we continue to do that. I am confident we do have the right resources now, and we have access to the resources we need in the future.
Well, why did it take more than a year to have a trilateral have been terrorized by this crisis?
As local municipalities for many, many months now. In fact, our colleagues from Surrey, Sukh Dhaliwal and Randy Sarai, have been advocating for collaboration from day one of the extortion situation evolving in British Columbia. What I can say is Premier Eby was one of the first, if not the first person to write to us about the listing of the Bishnoi gang. We did that within weeks of receiving that request. We have invested heavily, as you will recall, last December we invested $1.3 billion into our border plan. We have legislation that will give tools directly to law enforcement. So notwithstanding that we didn't have a summit of this nature, much of the work that we have been doing, and you see that with the Extortion Task Force, began many, many months ago. What we're doing today is reaffirming that collaboration and looking to see if there's any gaps. And I'm suggesting that we reconvene in 90 days just to assess progress. So our commitment will be to continue the engagement on a bilateral basis. I also met with a number of mayors both in Ottawa and here that are impacted, and we will continue the work in collaboration.
It's not correct to suggest that the work on this has just started today. In fact, we've been working closely with our federal partners on this for some extended period of time. The task force started its work in September. The first task force that we're aware of to incorporate the Canadian Border Services Agency into its work. We reached out to our federal counterparts, Minister Fraser, Minister Ndesangri, around reforms that were needed in the criminal code, including related to extortion. To the federal government's credit, they acted very quickly. Those bills are currently in front of the House right now. Those are significant reforms to how the criminal justice system works. These are not things that happen in the last 24 hours. These are things that we've built together to respond to this unique and unprecedented threat that is taking place, and not just in British Columbia, but also in Alberta, and also in Ontario and key communities. And police believe that there are very clear links between all this activity across the country. It does require coordination. It does require regular check-ins to make sure that we're all on the same page, and that's what happened here today. People need to know that we are unified, that police are coordinated, that they have the resources they need, and the only way that we can ensure that is we get everybody in the room together, and we say, do you have what you need? Is the coordination working? Is the task force model working? A couple of my federal colleagues asked some very difficult questions about should CFSEU be running this instead of the task force. It's a question they're hearing in the community. And they heard very clearly from police, from the chairs of the task force, this team is working and CFSEU plays a critical role at the table. We have to be able to bring forward these questions from our communities. We have to be able to advocate for the victims as politicians, but the only people who are able to effect the arrests, to do the investigations, are the law enforcement officials, and they're going to tell us what they need to get that job done. That's what today was about.
And a follow-up question to the Premier. And what are you hoping to get out of the meeting with Minister Hodson later? And do you think that Liberal MPs from BC would pay a political price if this pipeline is ramped through without proper consultation?
Well, I think, you know, and this is obviously off topic from today's announcement, but an important issue for the province of British Columbia, even on the most optimistic take, is many, many, many years away. It has no route. It has no funding. There is no company that is advocating for it. And it is solely at this point a communications exercise from the province of Alberta. It has already become, and I'm worried that it will continue to be, an energy vampire that sucks federal time and money, that sucks Indigenous government time and energy, and our government's time and energy at the expense of very real major projects that are worth tens of billions of dollars, not just to our provincial economy, but to the national economy. The government of British Columbia, in partnership with First Nations and communities and companies, has about $90 billion in capital projects across the north and the northwest that are real projects with real proponents and permits that are reaching final investment decision, some as soon as within the next year. As is the case in LNG Canada Phase 2. That project alone will be the largest private sector investment in Canadian history, and it leans heavily on the tolerance of coastal First Nations for a dramatic increase in shipping through their territories. These are the same coastal First Nations who are saying we do not want a heavy oil pipeline. If one is forced on us, we'll have to reconsider our support for other projects. From the point of view of British Columbia, and I hope from all Canadians, projects that will deliver the growth and prosperity that people need in a time of a crisis of affordability, that's going to deliver jobs for families, that will do so in the near term, not the distant future at best, and projects that will not jeopardize billions of dollars in prosperity should be the priority going forward. I'll be reinforcing that message with Mr. Hodgson, who is well aware of these realities, and delivering the message that British Columbia is proud to have 4 times the number of major projects of any province in Canada, that we are leading the way on private sector investment, that we're going to deliver jobs and prosperity, but the federal government needs to be extremely careful to make sure that their efforts with Alberta don't put those projects at significant risk.
Good morning. Sonia West, Sanjha TV, FYI Media. First of all, I want to say my sincerest condolences to the Sassy family and all of those victimized by the crime that we have here. My question is for the Minister of Public Safety. Criminals, by definition, do not follow the law, but the assault-style firearms compensation program asks them to surrender their guns. How will this stop organized crime and extortion, and is it worth taxpayers spending hundreds of millions if it mostly affects law-abiding owners?
We are taking a number of very important steps to get guns off our streets. It starts with criminal code amendments that Minister Fraser is putting through the House as we speak. It starts with Bill C-12 with respect to a stronger border, along with our $1.3 billion investments at the border. We're adding 1,000 new RCMP and CBSA personnel to ensure that our borders are more secure, and we tackle the issues around transnational organized crime that works to make sure that guns are off our street. The assault-style firearms compensation program is an additional measure that we have been working on. It prohibits 2,500 firearms from our streets. It essentially are assault-style firearms that are meant to cause maximum harm to individuals. These are not the type of firearms that you use for hunting or other types of leisure activity. These are lethal weapons that we're taking off our streets. In the context of all the things that we're doing, what we want to ensure is those who have licensed firearms are able to get compensated for firearms that they're unable to use in their future. So that is essentially what we're doing, compensating them and making sure that they're not out of pocket, and it is a program that is needed in the context of all the work that we're doing around making sure guns are off our streets.
Okay, and my follow-up. We just heard from the Extortion Task Force saying, we will find you and put you before the courts. My question is, once law enforcement finds them and puts them before the courts, how quickly can these criminals be sentenced? Or will they be able to board a plane and flee our country before they are sentenced?
Thanks. Oh, you want to do this one?
No, let me just comment on the CBSA piece, and Premier, please talk about the sentencing piece. CBSA is integrated within the Extortion Task Force in British Columbia, and they will work each and every day to ensure that those who are inadmissible to Canada, who are ineligible to stay here, are removed. Canada Border Service Agency is removed 18,000 people last year. They prioritize those with criminality. This year, we're on target to remove over 20,000 individuals, and that work will be strengthened as more resources are going to CBSA.
Thanks. We've been really concerned, and I know that the concern has been shared at the federal level, of a number of high-profile cases where violent offenders were arrested by police, brought to court, and then released back into the community. This is completely unacceptable to the average British Columbian. No one can make sense of why this would happen. And the courts were pointing to aspects of federal law under the criminal code. Nikki Sharma, our Attorney General, behind me Nina Krieger, and before her Gary Begg, advocated strongly with the federal government for reform in this area. Minister Fraser heard those concerns to his credit and has made reforms to bail law, particularly in relation to extortion. One of those proposed reforms is in front of the federal parliament right now. And this law, if it's passed, would mean if you're arrested for extortion, you have to prove why you should be released instead of the prosecutor having to show why you should be held in jail. And that reversal of putting it on the offender means it is far more likely that individual is going to be held in jail. I've reached out to my federal counterparts in the federal NDP to encourage them to pass this as quickly as possible. I know that the federal Liberal Party, all of their MPs are on side. I asked the Conservatives to pass it as quickly as possible, the Bloc Québécois and the Green Party, all parties to come together and pass these before Christmas so that the communities here south of the Fraser know that if someone is arrested, they're not going to be re-released back into the community.
Yasmin Gandham, CTV. My question is for Premier David Eby. We've heard, from Mayor Locke, from other people in the community, they're sending their kids out of the country. They're living in fear, day in and day out. And they hear this announcement, and a lot of focus is on prevention here. But what about action now to keep these people safe so they can sleep at night?
Yeah, there's a huge amount of urgency, definitely in the community. Anyone who is facing these threats, they cannot rest at home and feel comfortable and safe. They're worried about their businesses. I know that I and many of my counterparts up here who are involved at the political level have heard directly from business owners, from families, from community members who are directly affected by this. They're heartbreaking stories. And we share the urgency that's in the community for action as quickly as possible to arrest people. There is no question that police can and are acting. There's a very impressive amount of work that's happening. But there is a difference between arresting the frontline person that commits the offense of shooting at a house and doing the deeper police work of rooting out the entire noxious weed of the organization that is doing this work. we have asked police not to focus exclusively on the frontline people committing these offenses. These, in some cases, people who are here on temporary resident status, who may have overstayed a visa, which is why CBSA is involved, very precarious circumstances. They don't have money. They're getting paid a small amount of money to engage in a very serious crime. But who is paying them? What are the roots? And can we pull out the whole plant instead of plucking a few leaves, because the leaves are just going to come back? And that's what we've asked police to really focus on. It takes a little bit longer, but the results will last longer. And I am convinced that the police are doing the work to really focus on that next level. And I turn over to the task force co-chair if he has any comments about this.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. I'll echo that this is not a one-dimensional enforcement by police. We are working the local police jurisdictions with the community writ large, then the task force at the regional level, the provincial level, and the national level, and then we reach out with our federal counterparts, whether it be CBSA or with the federal RCMP, to ensure that we are coordinating across the country and making sure the information intelligence we gather at all levels is going to combat everything from the transnational issue right down to the local issue.
My follow-up actually is for the Extortion Task Force. You briefly mentioned an arrest this morning. I'm not sure if you're able to elaborate on it, but is there anything that you can add to that?
Yeah, it literally happened at 7 o'clock this morning while we were coming here prepping for this. So there will be press releases done on that. I'm looking for my media person who's diligently assuring me that's being written now. So you will get that as soon as we can get it out to you.
Parvez Sandhu, Connect FM. The question is best suited probably for the federal officials. The number of individuals deported so far is 5. Why are the names not being released? And what is the nationality of the people who've been deported so far?
So to put it in the broader context, there were 350 referrals to CBSA for assessment of the eligibility of individuals that may or may not be legally allowed to stay here. Based on that, that number has now come to 95. Based on that, 5 people have been removed. Now, this is relatively a recent tracking because previously we've done the work, but it hasn't been tracked as part of the Extortion Task Force. The work continues to assess the other 95 to see who else is eligible to be removed. There are a number of individuals who are going through a process of assessment as well as legal processes that they're entitled to as part of Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and once that's complete, they too will be removed if they don't hold a status in Canada. We will also continue to work, and the Premier made a very important point in terms of advising of the names and other individual characteristics. There are privacy restrictions that exist, but we are looking to see what can be done to ensure that at a future date we may be able to share that information.
The follow-up is for Assistant Commissioner John Brewer. The person who was arrested in India today, Bandhuman Singh Sekhon, was he identified as a suspect in CAPS Cafe investigation?
Thank you for that question. We do not have specific information on that at that individual at this time, and so we're working with our federal counterparts and with our counterparts across the country to see if we can link that to any known instances within the Lower Mainland right now.
Swift Radio, Ginny Sims. My question is, well, first a comment. I think it is good to see everybody meeting together, all 3 levels of government, the police forces, and to see this summit happening. I think it will reassure people that something is happening, and I want to thank each and every one of you. My question is about the victims. I was glad to hear today that additional resources are being supplied to provide protection for the victims. But many victims are still telling us that they are not getting basic protection. They are scared, they are worried, and my fear is this is going to lead to more people not reporting. So what message do you have for people on victim protections?
Thanks for the question, Ginny. I can tell you, since the task force has been announced, that we have had a dramatic increase in cooperation by victims. We've had more people come forward, hence there's been more extortions reported to the task force and to the local police jurisdiction. The money is announced by both levels of government to help support victim services, who will make a big difference. We will be able to have more people from the task force coordinate with those victim services people to get that information out to the victims, work with the victims, so that then we can coordinate better and much faster than we are right now.
My follow-up is about the legislation that is in the House. I was quite shocked to hear that how long it takes for the police forces to get hold of phone records and track down IPS addresses. And there were three things that the parliamentary secretary mentioned earlier. So I want to know what those three things are here today. And the second thing is, I want to appeal to all elected officials. This is not a political issue. This is a public safety issue. Get your act together and get this legislation passed.
Thank you, Ms. Sims, and finally good to meet you. I know we spoke a couple of times.
We're sort of friends.
Let's WhatsApp friends. Look, Bill C-2, important piece of legislation called the Strong Borders Act, was introduced back in June. It was the second act that we introduced as a government. Having gone through the summer, there were three elements that had serious opposition. One with respect to lawful access, which is what you're talking about. The other one relates to postal access for law enforcement to search mail that's under 500 grams, which has a very specific legal loophole, and we're trying to close the loophole. And the third one was about money over $10,000 that is part of money laundering. That particular piece is now incorporated into our BIA, so we're essentially left with two issues. Lawful access is the single most important tool that law enforcement has been asking for us to adopt. It is we are the only G7 Five Eyes country not to have a lawful access regime. We're constraining the ability of law enforcement to do its job effectively, and there's a number of people here. I'm going to probably ask Deputy Commissioner Larkin to maybe comment on this. But the position that we've taken is, while C-12 is moving along without these three elements, we have an absolute resolve to ensure that lawful access will be law in Canada. Both Premier Eby and myself, and I don't want to speak for him, but we have strong backgrounds in civil liberties. So there's been a number of commentators who have commented on potentially overreach. There's also others who, for example, survivor groups, those who are working with childhood sexual exploitation of images that are around in the internet, have their positions, and their businesses who have expressed concern. So we have opened 4 tables where all these parties can come and express their concerns. I have asked former BC Minister Murray Rankin to mediate amongst the 4 parties and to come up with a lawful access regime that can have broad-based consensus. That is the work that's happening from now to the winter, and my sincere hope is to be able to bring in new legislation or amend C2 to ensure swift passage. And I do call, law enforcement cannot do their jobs in an effective manner with